I'm doing good, thank you, Abigail. It was my birthday weekend, so I was away for the weekend, ate too much, drank a bit too much as well. So it was all good. And thanks for the chat. Decided to just do it. Um, right, okay. Yeah, I was having a chat with Dan this morning. He's a newer member with us from Australia, and he works 1 week on and 1 week off. And he's just been going through his business plan, put a lot of time and effort into it. And there is a section in the forum explaining how to do this. So if you go into the forum and you go to, where is it? Everything else down here, and you go to David's, starting over, there is in effect a little curriculum for you to follow. And Dan, by the look of it, has gone through all of this and put a lot of time and effort in. And when we work with private clients, that's the first thing we get them to do is to create a business plan and a life plan and to think about where you want to go. I recommended a good book to him, which is also helping him get his financial mind in order. And this is particularly relevant for Aussies, but I have suggested this is a good book for anybody. And this is called The Barefoot Investor, an Australian guy. I think he's on the telly over there, one of these financial dudes, but it's actually very good. The original one, he was very anti-crypto, and I thought he was silly at the time. And he's in the revised version, he actually says, yes, I got it wrong on that one. But particularly if you're an Aussie, he tells you how to benefit from your super fund by up to $250,000. And none of this is spam or hype or anything, but it's also talking about getting your financial house in order. Really useful if you're trying to get yourself out of debt. And if not, if you manage to get yourself out of debt and if you're going forwards, how to create buckets for different budgetary items and savings and things. Really good book for financial planning. And rather than paying your financial planner every year to go see him and explain why at the moment the stock market's on the floor and you've lost money and you're still going to pay him, it will cost you $20. Or it says in here there's one on eBay for $4. But anyway, really good book. Now, a week ago, I said that Trump, market chaos, and I assessed the risk of trading and investing in Forex, stocks, and crypto while President Trump is in power. And boy, are we getting that now. And last week, as I explained in this, he come out with the idea of a crypto reserve plan. And the significance of this actually as well was not just that they would have crypto, but they would invest, is the way it was suggested. As ever, the devil, what is it, the details in the devil or the devil's in the detail? It wasn't quite as straightforward. Basically, what he said so far is that all the Bitcoin and crypto they've confiscated in recent years, unlike the Biden administration, they're not going to sell it, they're going to keep it. He has left the door open if they've got any spare cash lying around, which is unlikely with the debt level, that they could in the future, if they can find some money under the carpet, under the bed, they could in the future invest in other cryptos as well. So not as straightforward as it's first said. Here we go. This is the guy who plays Jack Reacher. Just been watching the latest series. He looks more animated there than he does in the program. He can't act to save his life, but the guy, if he takes his shirt off, he's built like a brick outhouse. Just slightly off topic. Anyway, so this is all been going on. And then, of course, this weekend, and we had the talk from Trump of a potential recession. He said, yes, it is a possibility. And what you have to think about is at the moment, he's at the start of a 4-year term. He has a majority in the Senate. So basically, for now, he can get away with anything. And if he wants to cause a bit of pain because of the tariffs, then now is the time he would do it. And there is a benefit for the Americans at the moment. The American economy, one of the benefits of what's going on, anybody know? How are the American government saving money at the moment with what is going on? Ben says he's back in the UK with that weather. Oh dear. Um, yes, I did. Thank you, Ben. It was a good weekend away. Happy hour a bit late. Drop in the US dollar. Yep, Trump does not like a strong dollar. Didn't the first time and doesn't want a strong dollar because then it makes their exports more expensive. Ashley gets it. The real benefit has been government bonds. The interest that they're having to pay on bonds has dropped significantly. However, his ego will not allow him to allow this situation to go on for too long. And the other thing is when we talk about fundamentals, and most of you glaze over when we talk about fundamentals, it's really not that complicated. But the fourth part of it, so you've got inflation, interest rates, and growth are the three main things that we usually look at for the quality of a currency. But the final bit is sentiment. And the final bit mixed within sentiment is that central bankers and presidents and prime ministers around the world can try to talk stock back up or down and their currency up or down. And so, any idea what Trump has said this morning on X or overnight on X regarding Tesla? Anybody seen that? And the thing is with Trump, this is my part, what I'm getting at now. I have felt for the last few years there's going to be a recession, and I have invested accordingly. Almost 30% of my portfolio now is tied up in gold and silver and some gold and silver miners, and I will be buying more of those today. But any ideas what else Trump has been doing to try to help Tesla? And whilst you're thinking of that one, we'll just have another look at some more of the titles. So the stock sell off, is it a correction or the beginning of a bear market? That's the big question as ever. And Trump wants to buy a new Tesla, says Marcel. Hi, Marcel. That is correct. And on Twitter, it started a bit of a performance from Trump supporters who are posting on here, maybe on a different bit here. I've just ordered my Tesla. So there has been incidents at the weekend and incidents around Europe, particularly around America, of Teslas being destroyed and showrooms being destroyed, etc. Talk about a big backlash at Tesla because of what Elon Musk is doing. And certainly in the UK, I was told anecdotally that sales of Teslas had dropped significantly, and in Europe. And yet I read this morning from fortune.com that says that sales have risen. What they do say within the article is that it's a rising tide lifts all boats, that all electric vehicle sales are up apparently in February. And even then, anecdotally, I don't know if that's true or not, but apparently Tesla sales are up. And then Yahoo says unprecedented slide, Tesla sales plummet 45% in Europe. And there is talk of anti-Musk sympathizers are ditching their Teslas. Others who were had vehicles on a lease are coming up for renewal and will not renew. So all a bit of a mess. But the significant part of it is Trump is then saying, yes, he's going to go out and buy a Tesla, as are some other Musk supporters. So the main point I'm making is Trump can come out and start to be more positive, or can say something or do something to try to stop the rot in the stock market. Because ultimately, although a weak dollar is beneficial to them and the drop in interest rates that they're paying on T-bills is beneficial for them, the stock market is the main. The total GDP of America, I believe, is tied up in the stock market. And yesterday, there was 1 point some trillion dollars was wiped out. And some of that was mine, and some of it was mine on crypto. And yet I slept fine. And the reason I slept fine is that you will remember whenever I am, well, certainly those of you in your investing future, when I get into crypto and it doubles and it triples, I take out the initial stake and I take some profit. And I have done the same with stocks. So we had some really good stocks in the last few months. I seem to recall HIMS was one of them, a medical one, I think went up about 180%. So again, I said to the investors, investing group, take out the stake and take some profit. And then they had a bit of a rally after the Super Bowl final because they had an ad on there. And then they've lost the license for a medical drug, which was part of the growth. So we're out. So you do have to keep your eye on what's going on. I did put stops in, and again, advise folks, my investing folks, I was putting stops in on a lot of stuff, but I did actually buy a few stocks yesterday. Anybody, any ideas out of everything that was going on yesterday? Which stocks, if any, would any of you have considered buying yesterday? Adam says, when does what Trump says become market manipulation? Hmm. From a legal perspective, as I said the other week, and I think it was Justin or Julian said last week, so I'm palming it off on him. His sons are very active in crypto at the moment, and they post on Twitter. And Twitter, in answer to your question, Dan, I use X for social media. I don't bother with Facebook anymore. I use X if I want to keep up with opinions and what's going on. But Trump the other weekend, so he came out last Sunday and said about this crypto reserve. Well, the week before, Eric Trump and one of the other brothers were pitching Ethereum as being an important buy. And they are both very pro crypto. And obviously, there was the Trump coin, which some would say was a pump and dump. I wouldn't for legal reasons. So I've always felt anybody that knows anybody within government. You look at Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi has got something like 200 million that she's accrued. She outperforms the stock market every year. Why? Because she's on the inside of it all. And a lot of senators, when COVID came along in 2020, dumped most of their airline stocks, anything that was going to be affected by COVID, they dumped them before the news came out. But in the meantime, they bought pharmaceutical company stocks. So anybody that knows what somebody is going to do in advance can make a lot of money, shall we say. Anyway, I am not going to comment too much other than that. Tesla, yeah, Elon Musk is on Twitter all the time. But I find Twitter, I don't have any confidence in mainstream media anymore. I don't watch the BBC at all. It is a mouthpiece for the British government, and the same with a lot of mainstream media around the world. And it also came out that I think was it Associated Press received 8 million from the Biden administration. It all sounds such a tangled, corrupt web that's been woven over the years. And there was a thing the other week, you'll often see the same words used in headlines by all the mainstream papers at the same time on the same day. So I am very suspicious of all of it. You have to be careful with Twitter equally because there are those with extreme views. So you've got to kind of choose wisely who to follow. Now, any ideas what I might have bought yesterday? Alan, hi Alan. Alan says gold. I am buying mining stocks, Alan. Yes, and I will be buying. I did think I did buy a mining stock yesterday. And I'm going to look at gold in a moment. The Abgar says options. I am studying options, Abgar. I have 3 books, and the Amazon man is due, and he normally turns up in the middle of these sessions with another 2 books. I am studying options, and I'm going to do it on a very simplistic basis because I need it to keep it simple. And I will start to include it within yourinvestingfuture.com. But I'm also looking at something else which is really, really exciting and interesting. And I actually made my first purchases yesterday. If I'm going to do anything and I'm going to teach anything, then I always put my own money where my mouth is first. So I did invest yesterday in 10 or 11 projects. I put $400 in each. So my total spend, oh, and one of that was short and long Tesla, and I went half and half on that. So altogether, I put $4,000 in yesterday. So I'm trying to find the time at the moment to study this new, very, very interesting, very exciting way of getting good returns on stocks. The thing is, because mainstream stocks now, the days of, I was explaining to my daughter yesterday, normally when folks were retiring in the past, they would receive a lump of money from a pension and they would put it into stocks that would give them 5 to 6% dividend per year. And inflation was at 2% or less, so they could live off the interest on their pension, the pot, and not affect and reduce the actual amount of money that they had. Well, now the dividend on stocks is appalling, and some of them, Amazon and Meta, don't pay anything. So with those, you just after capital growth all the time. But what I've found is a really interesting way of doing it. It's higher risk, and therefore, again, it's a bit money you can afford to lose, etc., etc., etc. Same as with crypto. But I will be, I think within 2 or 3 weeks, I will be able to present it to folks. Marcel, one of my private clients, he's been having a look at it as well, as has John. So there's a few of us looking at this in depth at the moment. I'm the one that's put the money on the line at the moment. But anyway, we'll come into that in a little while. So, gold. Alon mentioned gold. And an interesting thing with gold, what was going on yesterday? Everything was dropping including gold and silver, which is silly. But then again, this is gold from the COVID crisis. So when the COVID crash came along, gold went down along with everything else. The only difference is that gold dropped 15%, whereas the S&P dropped 35%, and they both recovered quickly this time. And then I've shown you this many times before, is the 2008 crash. The S&P came down over 50% and gold only came down 30%. And the main thing was that gold recovered within a year and the S&P took 5 years, and then gold went on a run. So for the last few years, I have been accumulating gold and silver bullion, not at home, not under the floorboards. It's all done through Bullion Vault in London, and it's stored in Switzerland. But I also use mining stocks to give me leverage. So I watched yesterday, gold and silver were dropping as well, which was silly. They have recovered somewhat this morning, but it's the mining stocks. And I was talking about this last week. Gold and silver in the ground at the moment are at a significant discount. And what was good for those of us looking at mining stocks is they dropped as well yesterday. So this is one of my mining stocks. This is the one I made the most of last year. Silver went up 35% last year, and this was my best performing mining stock, went up 275%, which means that you are getting leverage without using leverage on stock. So normally I wait for a M2 breakout, trendline break, etc. It's in the middle of a bunch of EMAs at the moment, which I do not like, as you know. But if I was to buy it today, that would be a 50% gain back to where it was. And all of them, well, not all, but the vast majority of the gold and silver miners, even though gold has been at all-time highs, the miners have been lagging. And that, therefore, to me, means that the gold in the ground is at a discount at the moment. And if the nasty stuff hits the fan, and if this is the start of a bear market crash, then gold and silver should go down slower and recover quicker if history is anything to go by. So this is the thing I look at every day. So clearly we had the dollar index. It was easy. So from September up till January, February, it was easy. It was going up. We were just buying the dollar, buying the dollar. And then I was saying to folks, well, look, until it breaks 107, which I think at the time was 61.8 fib on the way up, and then 78.6 fib was here on the way up. Until all that lot broke, I was still of a mind that the dollar was going up, and it did rebound. And then for me now, I have to wait until these are broken. So it's now broken to 255. So now I have fibbed this as though the dollar is going down. And therefore I am looking in Forex terms to short the dollar if we get back up around 105. And so I will be shorting the dollar Swissy. I will be looking to buy the euro. I will be looking to buy the pound, etc. on pullbacks. So then you look at the British pound, and again, I was talking to Dan about this morning. If you compare, right, let's everybody take part. This is the pound. It's now broken the downtrend. It's broken the 78.6 fib, which I think was here. We're on our way up. So I've fibbed the recent low to the recent high. If I was going to take that, where would I be buying the pound?
This is the tricky one, Mark. I was thinking about it.
Ah,
I don't know.
don't you help them.
I've got it somewhere where I feel conservative.
Right.
There are two areas I think are good.
Yes. So nobody's answered the question other than Smarty Pants Ashley. Right. Why is the euro then a better bet? And I will not help you on this one, and Ashley will not help you on this one. Remember, we're wanting a pullback to buy the euro or the pound. Why is the euro a better bet than the pound that we've just shown you? Come on. Why is that one tricky? Because where are you going to buy, and why is that one better to buy on a pullback, not where it is now? Indy says the EU needs to pull back more, and then Adam says the EMAs are closer together, and Ben says correlation with USD rising. So a bit of all of those really. But look, if you go here, 106.80, so 107, we've got the whole number. We've got the 55 EMA, we've got the 200 EMA, the 50% fib. with previous major support and resistance going on. So if the price comes back into here, and then we have a risk-reward ratio, it's clearer on MetaTrader, but clearly that is a strong area of confluence and multiple reasons. This 200 EMA is going to keep moving up and probably cross the 55 unless there's a big drop. So you're going to have everything and anything going on here. On the pound, which is highly correlated, i.e. they go the same way at the same time, well, do you go here? Well, no, because you haven't got 5 reasons. Or do you go here? Well, yes, I could get 5 reasons, but the probability is I'm going to need a 50 pip stop, and the probability is it's probably going to struggle at the monthly 55. Why? Because that's exactly where it stopped last week, and that's exactly where it sat on the pullback as well. So when you have multiple opportunities line up at once, you want the ones with the clearest option, the most confluence, and the good risk reward. And the other thing with this is on here, there's nothing in the way up there to stop it if we can catch it later. So if this lot starts to move up and this lot moves up for next week and we get into here, next week that might be good. This week, that is the better option. Bear in mind, this will be the target. Why? Because look, it's the 200 EMA we use all the time, my strongest EMA. And where did it stop in recent days? To the pip there. Wouldn't touch it with the barge pole here because it's stuck in between EMAs. And the probability at the minute is it's probably just going to bounce in there. A Shutosh says Germany is announcing several measures making euro strong. What's going on at the moment in Europe and the UK? The UK's no money to pay for pensioners. Normally in the winter they give old people, the poorer old people, they give them £300 a year to help them with their fuel bills so they don't freeze to death. Because despite the global warming scenario that's been pitched all the time, there are more people, older people, die in the UK every year from cold than there does from the heat. So the government have no money to give that this year, and they didn't mention that when they were elected. And yet suddenly they've all collectively managed to find $800 billion to spend. And what are they going to spend it on? And what are they going to spend it on? What's the EU suddenly having to do now? What are they going to spend the money on? Military, defense. Nothing like a war for an economy. The US economy recovered after the 1929 crash. It took 10, 12 years to recover, but it recovered in the build-up to the Second World War when they had factories running 24/7. So suddenly the Germans have changed the rules on what they can borrow in terms of for the military. And in truth, they should have all have done this a long time ago. Trump said the first time that you're not paying enough into NATO. Germany at the time was on a boom and was not paying in the 2.5% and had no intention of getting there before 2030. Suddenly, they've all managed to lift a floorboard again, as with COVID, and collectively they've found 800 billion that they're going to spend. As a result of which, last week, the UK stock market and the Euro stock market, before this sell-off, was up, all-time highs. Hey, nothing like a war. So S&P dropped, and now the S&P, not only has it dropped, it's broken the 200 EMA and it's broken the trend line. If Trump or the market, if Trump or something else cannot talk this up in the next day or so, we could be back on next for 5260. So this could be a significant break. The Dow Jones has stayed above the level that I've got in for months and the 55 EMA. The US 100 has broken like the S&P. The Russell, the smaller stocks, 55 EMA crossing the 200 is a bear signal. Well, again, we've stopped at the 200. We're really at the make your mind up time. This is the 2-year note. So the interest the American government have to pay on debt has gone down from October 23 when it was at 5.2, April last year when it was at 5. It is down at the moment at 3.8. So it means that the amount of revenue that the government collect every day in taxes, less is going out to repay the debt, which is good for the American government. Same for the 10-year note. So that was a benefit. Gold and silver, as I said, didn't do a right lot. Bitcoin dropped. I had an order in for at 76,500 to buy Bitcoin yesterday, and it only got to 76,708. And I would also have, if I wasn't in already, I would be looking in here. And Ethereum was cheap last night. This is Ethereum. And I sent a message out to the investing group yesterday. You might think I'm mad, but I was buying a few things. So I was talking about NFP last week, saying not getting involved, going to wait till Monday. I also said a further clue is I am away for a few days for my birthday weekend, and whenever I go on a trip, everything goes nuts. And it happened again. So in future, when it comes to analysis, the fifth thing is make sure I've not gone on holiday. Because the first time I went on a trip, I was at the top of a mountain in La Palma, in one of the Canary Islands, the day in April 21 when the crypto market crashed. And I couldn't get to, I didn't have an internet signal, and I didn't know anything about it until I got back to the bottom of the mountain, and I'd been out for dinner and had a few beers, and suddenly it was, what? So I talked about Trump in this update. So this is the messages I send out to investors. And I said he can reverse what's going on in the stock market. This was yesterday, just by saying something. And so we'll wait and see what happens. And said if this is a temporary rebound, it shouldn't be too far away. If it drops further, then a move into gold and silver is to be expected. At the moment, gold and silver are dropping, which is what I talked about yesterday, but much less percentage-wise. The same thing happened in 2008 and 2020, which I've just shared with you. So I talked about yesterday, and again, you might think I'm nuts. I have the courage of my conviction. I believe in crypto. I think that what Trump is doing makes sense, certainly as far as crypto goes, and I therefore am not concerned. What I said to folks yesterday, if I was starting again and I was going to put 10 grand in, I would allocate 5 for Bitcoin and then 2.5 for Ethereum, which I said I would buy yesterday at two, and I would spend 2.5 grand yesterday on Bitcoin at 80. So basically, if I'm going to put 5 in, I was hoping it would drop lower. And then I still said I had the order at 76.5 and the stink bid at 66 in case we get a crazy spike down. Out of the 10K, I would allocate 2 to Ethereum. I would buy 1,000 now at 2,000, then hope it gets down to 1,800 or lower. And yesterday it got down to 1773. So those who chose to follow that idea are currently cost averaged in at 1,900, which is where it is at the minute. I then spoke about putting some into Solana, 750 into Solana. I would buy 500 now at 121, and then I hope for a drop to 80. And Solana yesterday got, it was 121 I was talking about, hasn't dropped any lower. But again, when you're thinking about if these things drop, where's the next place? You just do what we do in Forex. You have to put the line on and you say, well, okay, 110 is a big area. And if that drops, then we start to look to the left, or always look to the left, aka PR, and 80 was major previous support and resistance. So that is what I'm thinking of. And then I talked about putting some into XLM, some into XRP, and some into ADA. Why have I chosen these? Alon says, I will short everything on your next trip. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good strategy, Alon. Don't buy anything, just short everything when I'm going away. I'll have to make sure I post an update when I'm going. Actually, what's this one? EC Europa.
I just saw this on Twitter today, and it's Ursula saying that another 500 million children will be vaccinated by 2030, and it's Gavi. So, the Bill Gates Foundation.
Oh dear.
Um, yeah, I was just looking at that, and it's another 260 million put in there last year.
And they're talking about more vaccinations, and this shows the disconnect between America and the EU now. The guy that's going to be in charge of healthcare in the US under Robert Kennedy Jr. I've got his name now. It's an Indian-sounding name. He is a professor. He's an I can never say the word. Yeah, he deals in epidemics. Epidemics. When the COVID crisis hit, he spoke about these vaccines being untested and dangerous, and he was concerned about it, and he was slaughtered. His reputation was in. Anyway, he's now going to be in charge. So the disconnect between what's going on. This mob want to have a central bank digital currency, and Tony Blair, the ex-Prime Minister of the UK, has spoken about having your central bank digital currency tied to your vaccine certificates. So if you don't get vaccinated, you won't be able to fly. And they're also talking about, it was at the World Economic Forum last year, a Canadian company have created an app that will monitor your personal carbon usage. And if you use too much carbon within your house or traveling and flights, you won't be able to fly on your holidays next year. This is so Orwellian, it's insane. And you might say, well, it's just conspiracy theories. There's so many conspiracy theories that are turning out to be true. I then spoke about XLM. Oh, so I asked earlier, what have I bought? I bought some Amazon and I bought some Alphabet, Google. And the reason why I bought them is I wanted to buy Amazon for a while, but it was too expensive. And again, this is this thing about people forget what is going on a chart. They forget that this is representative of fear, greed, and value. And so when the price of something gets too high, those who have bought it lower down start to take profit, and those who wanted to get in say, I'm not paying this for it. So the first opportunity on Amazon, and I think I bought some here, I certainly recommended to somebody else to buy here, was this was a strong area to consider to buy Amazon, anywhere in here. So this time it set off without me, and it's too expensive. I am not going to buy. I will not buy a stock unless I have the potential to make at least 25%. So I bought some yesterday. Stretch, nearly 25%. The reason is, and sorry, this is Google. I think long term, in view of what they're doing with AI, what they're doing with cloud storage and everything else, even though Trump is talking about breaking it up, or the Americans are talking about I think it's got longevity. The one I really like and really wanted to buy was Amazon, and I bought some Amazon yesterday. What did I say? Amazon, Google Alphabet, recent buy 169. Amazon 205. I bought some, an order at 171 and 160. So 171. And again, look what I did. I had this line in. I had 200 in, so I did do two buys. I bought one at 205 and one at 199. So I'm cost averaging here, but I bought some more yesterday in here because this is a massive area of previous support and resistance. And if this pops, then you have to start thinking, well, that gap filled, so that's okay. Maybe stink bids back down here. But when you think about what Warren Buffett's been doing for the last 18 months, is accumulating loads of cash. He sold a significant holding in Apple, and I haven't bought Apple because I'm not convinced that they're on the right track at the moment. But these two, I was happy to buy. Microsoft, I was looking at yesterday, and I was umming and ahhing about Microsoft because, again, I think it's going to be around for a long time, but it wouldn't get to my 25%. And here, we've now broken this area, so where the heck are we going next on Microsoft? We have to start looking down here and say, well, next big area was that one where it's actually stopped at the minute, so let's leave that in. And then the next area down I would start to think is here. So you've got some resistance there, support there. So 360 on a stink bid, i.e. if it really crashes, I would certainly buy some at 335. Tesla will be interesting today with Trump and with the Twitter mob saying we're going to buy back in. Personally, I'm not convinced, so I say I am long and short with this new method that I'm using. Other things that looked interesting, HUD had a big drop, but they got fined yesterday. 20% drop on Monday. I read that somewhere yesterday they've just been fined for malpractice or something. So basically, to me, at the minute, it was worth taking the risk on a few of these because the sales were on. Could it go lower? Of course it could. Could this be a dead cat bounce? Quite possibly could be a dead cat bounce. But then for me, the hedge is the mining stocks. And so, for example, this is Agnico Eagle Mines. I own this in a pension that I have. It's too high. It's too expensive. I'm not going to buy it. AG, I did buy some AG the other week. And I broke my own rules here because it hadn't broken the EMA. But AG is Majestic Silver Core. If it gets through here, is 25% to there. But this, for me, is undervalued. So have a look at mining stocks, the ones that are really down, and do some research. Or if you're in the investing group, then you can have a look and see what I'm doing. But for me, these at the minute, gold is at an all-time high. Silver is at the highest it's been since 2008, 2012, when it hit 49.50. And again, as you know, from a technical perspective, that means that the double top on silver would be 49.50. Even the big ones have moved up. So Rio yesterday made a decent move, which is here. Normally, the bigger ones, there's not enough, and you still probably can't make your 25% on the year. No. Uranium's on the floor at the minute. I made a lot of money last year on uranium, leaving it alone at the minute. It's in free fall, and it's not one of those things that the need next week, because that's already been ordered. They've got pre-orders in for years ahead, and if there is a ceasefire with Russia, that could mean that there's more comes on the market. Sorry about that. Sworn I turned that off. Right, I think that's it. Any questions on what I have been on about? Big head and shoulder. Yep.
So I had gone to a party on the weekend and I met this guy. So we usually talk about crypto and gold. And he said to me, right, I'm gonna buy Bitcoin tomorrow. So basically on Sunday. And then I remember his exact words. So I said to him, "Oh, so you're using leverage, right?" And he was like, yes, I do. And then he said to me, right, this is the signal, buy at 85, stop loss 83, take profit
Mm,
93.
mm,
And I looked at it the next day and it's dropped like a cliff.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, I said to him, I don't use leverage. I told him I bought at 90, 86, and 83. But I
Yeah.
remembered you because you said, you can lose your shirt if you try to use leverage.
Yeah.
And it's quite
If you,
hard with this to really put a stop loss on that because you can get a huge spike as well.
yeah. No, it's way too dangerous as crypto for leverage. The only way really to have any semblance of stability is the stocks, but even they're way down. MicroStrategy, but again, MicroStrategy and Coinbase at the minute are cheap. So that's a safer way. But yeah, a general thing for anybody, I never use leverage on crypto. This is nuts. These spikes. And a couple of weeks ago, when there was another crash, this one I think it was, I think there was $2 billion of leverage trades were wiped out in minutes. And basically with leverage, what it means is if you buy a Bitcoin for $85,000 and it goes down to 75, you still own the Bitcoin. If you've used 10 to 1 leverage for it, you could lose your entire account on one of these spikes. And this is just nuts. So you will see people on Twitter over the last few years have got rich, allegedly, from crypto. But the other week there were people in there on tears saying, I've just lost everything. And that it's a mug's game. Do not use leverage for sure. What other questions have we got here? Short everything on your next trip. Ben, crypto reserve. Yep, Trump owned. Trump. Big head and shoulders. Oh, Adam says there's a big head and shoulders on Apple. Let's have a look at Apple. Actually, I have it on that one, didn't I? Apple. I got Apple on. Let's have a look. I think Apple have lost the plot a little bit at the moment. They used to have new things coming out all the time. And what's ticker? APPL.
Did you see about the UK government? Now they have access to your cloud service in UK. Well,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They are. What's going on in the UK is insane. Apple Head and Shoulders. I'm rubbish at these. That's a bit messy for the shoulder. Are you on about this as the Head and Shoulder, the big one? We'll let Ashley to talk about this one because I'm crap on Head and Shoulders. But yeah, it could be a big move. I mean, I've got a stink bid level down here around 200. Apple would be a buy for me. In fact, I need to set an alarm on there. But again, this is falling knife territory. If this is a bigger drop, it could go on forever. I don't pile in and just buy full amount. If I was going to put $1,000 in Apple, I'd put 500 in there, and I would put 250 in there and put more down here. And it might take 2 years to recover. So it's highly, highly risky. Not financial advice. Only use money that you can afford to lose. But yeah, if I get a stink bid down here, then it makes my 25% rule. But anything less, I'm not interested in. Okay, right, young Ashley, your turn. So you should have said to your mate about the Bitcoin is I would not under any circumstances use leverage because you could get burned. But anyway, Anyway, typical as well. What do you do all week? And then you go out on a weekend and you're talking about gold and crypto.
I never give advice because I don't want the
No.
blame to come on me. I just keep quiet and I listen. I'm like, okay, yeah, go ahead. Because I think he's given the money to someone in India and he's managing it.
Okay.
Um, yeah, it's all the things you would do in your early days to learn about trading.
Yeah, the hard way.
Um,
Right, let me stop sharing. If anybody has any other questions for me, just stick them in the chat box and I will type the answers.